When we say someone is a nice person, there are usually a few things that we mean. We mean they are pleasant to interact with. We mean that they are friendly and seem to enjoy the company of others. It may even mean that they embody values that we admire. They are trustworthy. They are kind or generous or loyal. I've known a lot of nice people in my life. It's something I'm grateful for. It's nice to have people around you who are pleasant, who are friendly, who care. It's nice when someone extends their loyalty to you or takes you under their wing. I've been thinking a lot about niceness recently because of our current national climate. As our country has become increasingly divided, as we've seen our core values threatened and tarnished, as we've seen the national bar lowered again and again, it has been disheartening to see how so many people have responded. I've seen a lot of nice people, decent people, seem not only fine with what is happening, but sometimes enthusiastically supportive of it. Nice people supporting not so nice things. I don't think I'm the only person here who have relatives or friends or coworkers who are kind and loving and profoundly, overwhelmingly nice. And yet those same truly wonderfully nice people vote and advocate for ideas that, when implemented, are the opposite of nice, that they hurt real people. I have relatives who I care a great deal about who are very nice, who seem unperturbed, for example, about the treatment of refugees on the southern border, or who calmly refute the dire threat of climate change, or vote for candidates who undermine human decency or democracy. I remember one conversation with a friend. He was telling me about a conversation he had with his mom. My friend was trying to tell their mom about a state politician who the mom was voting for, and that if that person was elected, they would probably lose their job because that politician didn't believe in my friend's career and wanted to cut all its funding. The mom loved her son. She was generous and kind every day to him. And yet when it came to politics, she acted in a way that was indifferent. It feels baffling to me sometimes how that happens. But it happens again and again. A very limited form of niceness. It began to dawn on me that most of us, myself included, equate niceness with goodness. And while being nice is obviously a good trait, it is only a small part of what makes someone good. Niceness, I believe, is really mostly about interpersonal relationships. When we say someone is nice, what we are really saying is that they are sociable in some way, that they make a good impression, that they are good at earning trust, reliable and loyal and likable. Now, it's good to be nice. We would rather have a nice person around most of the time than whatever the alternative might be. We would rather have a nice coworker, a nice boss, a nice roommate, rather than a mean one. But it doesn't mean that that nice person is inherently good, nor does it mean that someone who isn't nice isn't good. If we're thinking of goodness as a pie chart, niceness is a small sliver of that pie. The overall goodness takes a lot more into account. Many of you may have heard of the 1963 Milgram shock experiment. Participants in that experiment, which they could never do today because it is profoundly immoral, participants who were tricked into doing this experiment were asked to sit down with someone and ask them questions across the table, and when that person answered them wrong, the participants were told they had to administer a painful shock, which increased in intensity every time that person got the question wrong. Now, the whole thing was a setup. The person wasn't really getting shocked, and they were an actor. But the participants did not know that. Each time it got worse. The actor got more things wrong because the questions got harder. The more painful the voltage appeared to be, the actor got more and more in pain. They began to plead for mercy and for the shocks to stop. The participants were pushed to continue shocking that person by the researchers who were watching. The researchers told the participants that they had to keep going, that it was okay, that the responsibility for the pain was on the researchers, not the person pushing the button. And of course, most people kept on giving the shocks. Only a minority of the people refused, despite the obvious suffering and torture that those shocks were causing. When that study came out at the time, it was seen as a harsh verdict on the human capacity for goodness. Are we really so easy to manipulate into being cruel? People wondered. Is human nature so bad? Do we have no moral center to be able to distinguish right from wrong? To continue shocking another person when they scream for mercy is decidedly not nice, even if it was fake, nor is it good. But when the research was looked at again many years later, scholars found an interesting wrinkle, a twist in the data. They found that those who kept giving the shocks in that experiment had different personality traits than those who refused and walked away. It turned out that those who refused to continue shocking the actors, who got up and walked away in disgust, who resisted the urgings of the researchers to keep pushing the button, they were people who had antisocial qualities. We could have probably imagined them as curmudgeons or rough around the edges, or people who didn't care or have any social niceties, or cared about being perceived as likable. Perhaps they were unpleasant to be around. They were not, perhaps, very nice. The people who kept pushing the button, though, those who kept administering the shocks to the very end, they ranked very well sociably. They were pleasant, friendly, had leadership qualities. They were nice. Researchers speculate that the more susceptible someone was to social pressure placed on the researchers, they kept on shocking those actors. They didn't want to make the researchers upset because they cared about being liked. They did what they were told because they didn't want to make anyone mad. By contrast, the people who walked away, those with the antisocial tendencies, couldn't care less what the researchers wanted them to do. They knew what was right and what was wrong, and they did it. In this case, being not nice meant being good. The antisocial curmudgeon might not have been the person you wanted as a roommate or a boss or a colleague, but when you needed someone to do the right thing, to stand up for you against great social pressure and norms, it was that person that you wanted in your corner. Niceness did not mean good. This weekend, we celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. weekend. It's especially fitting, I think, in moments like these holidays, that we consider that the myth that nice equals good is not a harmless myth. It's not just about me or you being confused about a relative or a friend or a colleague who seems unconcerned by the troubles of the world, or about old studies given many years ago. It's harmful because by equating niceness and goodness, we limit what goodness can be. The civil rights activists of the 50s and 60s knew this, as did King himself. because it was easy for many people to dismiss the cause of civil rights because it wasn't nice. Nice people, it was said and argued over and over. Nice people didn't break laws. Nice people listen to police when police tell them to go home from the counter or from the streets. Nice people didn't inconvenience other nice people on the bus just because they didn't want to sit in the back. Nice people don't make others uncomfortable or feel bad about themselves. We see this dynamic today, of course, as well, just in different ways. Those who aren't nice must be bad or wrong or at least misguided in their tactics. We see it in tone policing when people with legitimate concerns are told they are being too loud or angry or irrational. We see it when the Black Lives Matter activist is accused of not caring about white people, as if advocating for one's own dignity is rude or disrespectful. We see it when a woman shares her story of Me Too abuse, and the woman is accused of shaming the abuser and ruining his life. She is not nice enough. Too often in our culture, now and historically, when we say something or someone is nice, what we really mean to say is that they do not disrupt the order of things. They know the social norms and they abide by them. A nice person makes other people feel good and comfortable. No one's life is made difficult or challenged or called out. It's predictable and pleasant. But not niceness, that disrupts. It makes people uncomfortable. It asks them to change or tells them they have to do something different. Niceness and order and resistance to change go hand in hand. MLK knew about the danger of conflating goodness and niceness as well. In his letter from Birmingham jail, he wrote to challenge well-meaning white people who, in his words, were more devoted to order than justice. Those who, in his words, prefer a negative peace with the absence of tension, which is niceness, to a positive peace with the presence of justice, which is goodness. King was concerned that many people had a fundamental misunderstanding of what goodness meant. Goodness did not mean that things were calm or orderly or nice, because that was fundamentally empty. A goodness that looks good at first glance, that allows for social niceties but fosters no true depth or trust or love. That is a veneer, but rotten underneath. True justice, true goodness, is born of real conversation, truth-telling, and an unwillingness to shy away from real suffering and responsibility to do something about it, even when it makes someone else uncomfortable or they feel like you aren't being nice. This goodness, according to King, was not nice, but it was just because it understood that the dignity of human life mattered more in the pie chart of goodness than the nice part did. To be clear, nice people can be good. We don't need to be a jerk for no reason. But we need to understand what goodness means in a different light. What does a deeper goodness look like? We have to raise the bar a little bit for that word. What makes it bigger and more important than niceness? A deeper goodness is willing to risk relationships with others in order to do the right thing. Niceness does not take that risk. A deeper goodness knows that we must be loyal and kind not only to the people we know or who are in front of us, but assume that everyone in our lives deserves that same respect and dignity because we are all each other's keeper. A deeper goodness means doing the work to understand that our lives are shaped by unjust societal systems and structures, not simply by the feelings we have by a smile from someone else. And this takes a desire to understand and be educated and learn, and a humility to believe that we don't already know everything about how the world works. Deeper goodness understands that justice requires risk, requires disruption and discomfort in ourselves, in those we love, in our society. It understands that justice can't and won't happen if it always must be nice. Niceness is rarely the path to true social change. History suggests that change only happens when power changes, when the order is disrupted and resources are redistributed. People, policies, ideas change because they must. Someone has pushed the levers to make it happen. Justice does not happen because someone asks politely. The civil rights leaders saw this too. Near the end of King's life, there was growing frustration with the slowness of change. There was a feeling that black leaders had tried to ask nicely, tried to do everything right, to put on their Sunday best, to be presentable, to assuage the concern and worry of the white moderates. They tried to appeal and heed the pleas for order, to slow down, to not make people uncomfortable. But they began to see that it was never enough. Time was always in the future. Just wait, go slow. It was a lie that those in power told. Play by the rules, respect the order of things, play nice, and we will help you. It was rarely true then, and it is rarely true today. More often, niceness is used as an excuse to keep people quiet and orderly and controlled. If we truly want the best for others in this world, we'll give up the illusion that being nice and being good are the same. It does the homeless person on your steps little good if you smile at them or toss them a coin. You refuse to confront the systems that cause their suffering in the first place. It does them no good to receive your kindness or affection or sympathy when you aren't willing to do the real, hard, uncomfortable work, actually understanding them and their life and why they are in the place they are. Find in yourself the places and the moments and the assumptions that lead you to equate niceness and goodness. We all have them because that is the myth that we have all been taught since our very youngest age. What does niceness really mean? Does it mean just maintain the order of the things that make us feel safe and not rock the boat? How can you make sure that you care more about goodness and justice rather than veneers of sociability and class and order? And how do you make that difficult challenge to those people in your life who care more about looking good than being good? We need to be the person refusing to be complicit, the one who walks away from the shock button, not the ones who people may like but keeps pushing it over and over. On this MLK weekend, remember that goodness is not easy. It is not pleasant. It is not simple. It is not won always with a smile. Remember that we need a higher bar for what being a good person is, what a good life means. Goodness is not about social pleasantries or feeling comfortable, but about a fundamental commitment to human welfare and dignity above all else. If it's about anything else, it is less important. It is nice to be nice. It is nice to be smiled at, to smile at others, but it is better to be good for you and me and this whole world of people. May we be good.